What's happening, y'all? This is Quentin Williams, founder of Project IMU and Charlotte Consciousness Conversations. We're sitting here with my guest and friend, Mark Timmerman. Mark and I met at an event here at Advent where we do our podcasting out of. It was a event called, what was the event called?
I honestly have no idea.
It's something about creativity. Where creativity can take you.
Yeah, it was three panelists, and they just talked about, how they're inspired about creativity and where it takes them.
Yeah. And so Advent does a number of very cool events. Charlotte Consciousness Conversation is one of them, and that's coming up. But anyway, we were at the event. I saw, I was just scoping out the room. I think I saw Mark that night, but we didn't end up meeting until the next day at Amelie's French Bakery over in Noda. So we had got talking about the event and a little bit about Mark's life or each of our stories. So I just thought it was really fascinating. So I asked Mark to come onto the show. So Mark, welcome to the Consciousness Conversations podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. First podcast.
Awesome. So you're in Charlotte now. Where are you from?
I'm from Brookfield, Connecticut. It's like a small woodsy town.
Okay. What's in Brooksy, Connecticut, other than woods?
Brookfield.
Brookfield.
Honestly, it's mostly residential. They're trying to revitalize the downtown area, but it doesn't exist yet. So it's mostly just a suburb.
Okay. So you were telling me about what got you down here to Charlotte. Can you share with our audience your story?
Yeah, I was living in Boston, and up until about a year ago, I quit and was trying to figure out what to do with my life. So I ended up traveling around for a while, and while I was gone, I just researched everything I could about property investing, and I'd spent all my money, so realized I couldn't do it myself, and figured I could use this knowledge that I had to help other people get started in property investing. And I moved down to Charlotte to do rental investing consulting because the market here is pretty prime for it.
That's cool, man. I love that you did some research before you came down and really thought about what you wanted to do with your life. And it's an interesting question for a smart guy to ask. I know that you were telling me about your experience in Boston working for a nice startup company. You were a developer where your opinions and your input was really valued and validated. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience and maybe how that relates to your interest in the real estate market?
Yeah, I was actually the product manager. So I have a background in software development, but this let me kind of get away from the nitty-gritty developments and kind of took me back to the big picture ideas. Mm-hmm. So I was doing kind of the high-level design, doing the business strategy, bringing together all the players to make sure that the product was on schedule, was applicable to what the customers actually needed.
Okay.
And stuff like that, yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, see, so the reason why I was interested in talking to you on the podcast, especially for Consciousness Conversations, is because you're in an interesting phase in your life where you're looking for a new thing to do that's both fulfilling and it pays the bills and allows you to meet some really cool people, And I find that people who are dreamers are really just interesting people to talk to. So many of us are in a similar space where we're looking for some sort of work that's going to be fulfilling to us and allow us to fulfill those life goals that may not be in line with the current career that we're in. So maybe, do you have any advice for any other people who find themselves in a career that they're, that's maybe not what fulfills them, or they're just looking to make a switch? What kind of advice would you give people who are in that position?
Yeah. So I'd say up until maybe a few months ago, I would classify myself as a dreamer. And now I'm slowly getting into the dreamer/doer, where I have all these ideas and I'm trying to really capitalize on now and get them done. For me, it's just reaching out to people who I'm interested in, learning about how they actually did their thing, and then just starting and doing projects. And I think having the web development as a skill set is pretty beneficial because I can actually build things and distribute them to people. And, I don't have to go through a manufacturing cycle. I don't have to get a bunch of people to agree to do it because I can just create it on my own and distribute it. But really, the biggest thing I've learned is that momentum is really everything.
Yeah.
And you start from zero and, you work and you have all these ideas and you get going. And at first you have absolutely no progress and you have really nothing to show for your work except whatever you've created, and no one's interested. But you keep fighting and like kind of pushing through it, and before you know it, you're starting to get inbound leads. People are asking questions about it. People are interested, and things start to work out. And I think it just goes from there.
Yeah, man, that's the same sort of process and cycle that I've seen as well. And the work that you've told me about that you've been doing is really, really cool and interesting. And the methods that you have for reaching out to these people are also pretty innovative, especially for maybe not so much innovative as it is just not the traditional route of sending out your resume. When you were working for the not web development firm, but what was the industry that you were in before going?
We did optimization software for the service industry, specifically restaurants.
And you were telling me that you, after you left that position, you ended up meeting with a series of C-level executives of a number of different companies.
Yeah, it became, actually when I was looking for the job that I had quit, the one at the optimization company, I had been laid off from my previous company. And
Gotcha.
Just because everything was going great, but it just financially wasn't going to work out. And they felt very bad about it, and they just introduced me to everyone they knew in Boston. And so instead of me going to all these companies and giving out my resume, instead I was having these conversations with the people who ran the company, and for them their company was their work and their life. So they're more conversations and they're more just friendly talks rather than interviews.
With important people, with C-level executives, right? The decision makers of companies. And the thing that's really interesting about that is because that gave you some confidence to go out and talk to some of these other people that you're talking to. Can you tell us a little bit about your the way that you're reaching out to some of these thought leaders and influencers on social media?
Yeah, well, I actually don't use social media pretty much at all, except for Instagram, yes. Where I'm more of a consumer of all this. Of Instagram data, at least. But I have a few accounts that I follow that I really admire, and some have a few million users or followers, and having access to that kind of scale is pretty incredible. And what I've done is I identify the ones I really like, and I think about what their work is and what they're trying to accomplish, and just think about how it could help. So in one instance, it's this photographer who does these incredible photo adventures, and
with like 500,000 followers.
Yeah. And he's really showing people these journeys he goes on. And I think people want, they're sitting at work, they're scrolling through the Instagram feed, and they see these beautiful pictures. And for them, it's kind of an escape, and they want to, get out of their normal life and escape into this photo.
So you had an idea that would really dive into that experience that he was already offering, but expanding on that. I don't want to talk about the idea in too much detail on the podcast, but I thought it was really fascinating, just that audacity that you had and that courage to just go and contact that person. What the hell? You don't know what's going to happen, but you're creating an opportunity. You're creating that space for something, for possibility to take place and turn into actual tangible resources and experiences for you, for this photographer, for, it's just interesting because so often dreamers, we dream, we lay back and we stare at the wall, the ceiling, or, we're laying in the field looking at stars, and we just think about all the things that could possibly happen. It's exciting because it's happening in our head, but it's safe. We're not actually taking that step and putting ourselves at the risk of failure or being rejected, and it's that hesitancy and procrastination for me is, it seems to be really rooted in fear. When we lose the fear and really just immerse ourselves in the excitement of the possibilities, that excitement's contagious, and that excitement, it dissolves fear, and it leads to just inevitable confidence. When you're excited, you're not even thinking about, something that could potentially act as a hindrance or an obstacle. I think it's important to consider those potential barriers, but it's also not something that should get in the way of us acting. So that's one of the things that I really appreciated about your story. And we have so much more to talk about. I mean, Mark and I have talked about the gamut of things, like crazy, like philosophical, existential concepts when we were over at the bar at Brass Tap.
Yeah, religion meets philosophy.
Yeah, so we'll dive into that a little bit later, maybe on another podcast. Right now, we're actually taking a break from an awesome event here in Charlotte called City Jam, Bridging the Digital Divide. Again, that's City Jam, Bridging the Digital Divide. So we're about to present our solution for how to heal and bridge the digital divide. So we're going to have to wrap this podcast up and call it a day. But Mark, thanks for joining us in the studio.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.